welcome to the month of March. It is the Women's Month. And today I sit with brilliant minds that make up, a coalition of youth that are speaking to a cause that is dear to my heart. But we're also going to talk about Women's Day as we gear into Women's Day. 8th March is not very far from here. So part of the conversation we are going to have today is to, see what these women are doing. What are they bringing to this table? What are they pushing for? But then also, what's their commitment to the women's movement as we walk into the Women's Day event? On my next to me right here is Joan Atuhaire. She is a Young Women's Alliance. She works at the Young Women's Alliance for Human Rights, right?
Yeah.
And she's a Chief Operations Officer at Maimosao. I didn't understand the Maimosao, but you delve into it as we have these conversations. Welcome today to this panel.
Thank you.
Next to her is a forwarder alumni for their leadership training. She is the Outgoing Guild Speaker of UCU. Patience Ayikoru Poni, welcome to this panel.
Thank you.
And next to her is Nancy Ayot. And Nancy is a finalist at the School of Law Makerere. So she's the lawyer you want to have in the next few months. And she's a writer, she's a poet, and a gender rights activist. Welcome to this panel.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies, as we are speaking today, and that is where I want us to pick this conversation from, the Uganda Feminist Forum is convening for the next 3 days. They're talking about women issues, but also feminist issues. And I don't want to take away from the fact that it's very important for us to acknowledge that. I mean, it's happening in a time where we are having the Women's March launch. So I want us to just pick our brains on, even when we are not there, because the engagements are both online and offline, what key issues do you want to come out of that forum? I'll begin with you, Jo.
I think one of the key issues that I want to come out of that forum is how to best include young people in feminist advocacy and work. Yeah. Because feminist work is largely exclusive of young people. Girls growing up in schools, in secondary school, in universities. Usually feminist work is largely about people who are in the corporate world and working class, and then that class of women who pioneered feminism. So for me, I feel like we are not really growing in terms of numbers. And yet for any political movement to thrive, we need to have numbers. So I think it's critical for us to discuss how we can involve young women to join the feminist movement.
And because she says what I wanted to say, the fact that we need to build from bottom up instead of from up down. And yes, we've spoken about, the need for mentorship and the need for these things. But then what else can we add to this conversation, especially as it's convening now, that can be helpful for the young women that she's speaking to that may not be able to access those spaces? Pesh.
Well, in addition to what she said, what Joan says, I believe that this UFF meeting that is happening now should look back at where they're coming from and whether they've achieved their first objectives. I remember in 1995, they had their Beijing conference that was worldwide, and now we're having it national, where they actually concentrate on the core values of the African Feminist Charter. But as they're there and speaking, as they need to look at, are they including everyone of different diversity, the feminists of different diversity, as opposed to class, like age, where you come from and all that? Do they look at that? And then what is their future goal? They should be able to look at something sustainable, like Joan has said, so that even those who will grow up can be able to benefit from it, not just thinking about themselves and it dies with their generation. Because the movement has been there before, and it's yet to continue growing. So like she said, there are not so many people in these spaces today, and we need to question ourselves, are the objectives being achieved? If not, what should be done? So it's my prayer that during that forum, they can really speak about their future perspectives, what is concrete and sustainable for the people that might not attend it online or physically, but can actually come and get to know about it and also benefit and push the movement.
So something like a working document that can come out of that has action points that we can follow through. Nancy, let me bring you in there, because I want to bring this and tie it into the Women's Day movement. You know, we cannot organize outside also the feminist movement. They're one and the same. So this year, the theme for the Women's Day is gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. And the key highlight in gender equality is that we are still at a place where we are yet to realize, you know, that that urgency of everything looks. And I know that spectrum of equality is very blurred because we may never really achieve it. But then how can we use our movements, like the feminist movement, our movements, our women's movement, you know, to advance for gender equality for a sustainable tomorrow?
Oh, thank you. Like you said, feminism and the women's movement cannot be separated.
Yeah.
Really, it cannot. And I think the main focus should be on bringing up feminism as something that is not so very confrontational, because most people think that it's confrontational whenever they mention feminism or women's rights. The first thing that everyone goes on defensive. What?
Yeah.
What about men? What about the boy child? What about this? I think the focus this time maybe should be more on portraying feminism and women's rights as something more receptive, something less confrontational, because this is about our society. It's about grooming everyone from the grassroots. Yes, it's about inclusion, it's about diversity. So I think it should be brought out in a way that is more receptive to everyone, less confrontational, because the reason why sometimes maybe we keep lagging behind is because people are not in the position to listen.
Yeah.
And yet, the best way to bring out our points is by making people listen.
Yeah. And it brings me to the conversation on stereotypes. I mean, part of the agenda for this year's theme is break the biases. And Joan, to pick your brain on that, we've had this narrative, what about the boy child? I mean, you create something for the women and they're like, oh, but also the boys. And then we continue to have a cycle of somehow, even when we front the women's agenda, there is a stereotype that constantly happens, that there is an agenda for the boys that wants to run, you know, herald with the women's agenda. How do we break out? But not even just that, but also how do we break out of the stereotypes of women don't want to be invited to panels, they don't want to talk. Women don't, you know, like that little bit of the women don't like those things. So it has even been decided for you before you're given a chance to, you know, to interface with it.
I think all that is backlash, and it's expected. Like, if you ever wake up and you say you want to take up a position of leadership, there are people who will go and dig up your past, come and challenge you and prove to the whole world how incompetent you are. So in this struggle that we are in, actually reclaiming what is ours is not something that's going to be easy, you know. The men will always say that, you know, we also have challenges, we also have this, which are valid reasons. But the conversation is about having a leveled playing field, equal access to opportunities. It's not about who is suffering the most, we need equal access to opportunities. And I think one of the things that I appreciate is she mentioned the African Feminist Charter, the Feminist Charter. And it clearly says that for you to identify as a feminist, you need to come out and say, I am feminist. No ifs, no buts. You know, I am feminist. You guys are going to hate me, but you know, and it's an interesting conversation, because when you take that position, you're ready for all the backlash that comes with it. You're ready to be abused. You're ready to be called names. But for me, what stands out is the leadership that comes with being called feminist. By the time you're calling yourself a feminist, you're ready to defend the feminist movement. That's why usually online, we always encourage other women who identify as feminists to involve in learning, reading all these resources that are there on feminism, so that they represent us well, because the whole world is looking for what is going wrong, and we need to really show that we are up to standard.
And that makes sense. And Pesh, she pushes me into the conversation I want to have. Okay, but let me take a break and then come back and we have that conversation.
Okay.
Violence, anger and hatred, misery, loss and pain. No, this shouldn't be the situation after elections. Fellow youth and Ugandans, now that elections are over, it is time to embrace our differences in opinion, political affiliations, and other issues that tend to divide us. We need to refocus on all the things that are beneficial to us, our families and friends. It's our duty to restore peace in our communities, and even as we participate in democratic processes, it's important that we do it with dignity. Say no to post-election violence. This message is brought to you by Center for Constitutional Governance in partnership with Action Aid Uganda.
All right, so all of us, as we are seated here, we sit on the Imara Youth Women's
Strand.
What is it? A strand?
Yes.
Yeah, I was looking for that word. I was about to say tribe.
It's a tribe.
So it is a tribe, by the way. So we are on the youth strand, and part of the taglines we have is rising for equality.
Yes.
And I just noticed that it feeds into the Women's Day theme on gender equality. So I want to pick your mind on what Imara really is, what Imara Women's Center really is, from the perspective of us, the youth. Yeah.
Okay. So Imara Center, or Imara Women's Center, is an initiative by Forum for Women in Democracy. And most of us know that Forum for Women in Democracy is a non-partisan organization that dates back to 1995. Now, Imara Women's Center is an initiative by them to be as something that is going to be generational, sustainable. That is why they're saying rising for equality. They want it to be a women's center by women for women. However, it's open to family groups, it's open to the males as well, and different organizations can be part of it, different nations, because its architectural design is inspired by the headscarf of a woman. When you look at it, how a woman's headscarf is, that is how it's built. And it can host up to 5,000 people worldwide, or even in the continent. Yeah. So this Imara Women's Center is out to, like you've said, the Women's Day theme, gender equality for today. So as in preparation for tomorrow. Now, this is a very selfless initiative by Forward, because it shows how selfless they are to provide a platform for women to come in the future, as opposed to having an interest of what are we right now, but they're looking at what are we in the next 25 years. Yes, because Forward has been there for 27 years now, and they're looking at, okay, we've been there for all this time. We have reached out to 2,000 people around Uganda and the world. They've nurtured transformational leadership in about 17 cohorts from 2004, their very first cohort of transformational leadership camps. And now they have reached out to 810 people. And I'm among the beneficiaries. I benefited from their 2021 cohort, the most recent one. So they're looking at, how can we still retain our alumni? How can we also retain the passers-by and those who have not directly benefited from us? And this center definitely is going to be one that has different segments: conference halls, libraries, music, dance and drama segments, and all that. So it's really out to amplify the voices of women and to give a safe space for women to actually come back home and know I have a place, a recreation center where we can come back and like probably 100 years to come, and they're like, oh, we had this and this that participated, and your names are probably on the wall, or your organization is imprinted somewhere. So it's a very selfless cause, and everyone should be part of this, because I believe why we should all be interested in this is we don't know what the future holds. We don't know how you will actually benefit from it. It could be directly or indirectly, but one day it will really be of great benefit, not just to Uganda, but to Africa at large. Yes.
Let me bring in Nancy there. Nancy, Winnie is the patron for the Imara Women's Center. And I want to quote something that she said. She said, the Women's Center will be a place built and owned by women's rights activists and their allies. It will be where we can converge and strategize and rest and refresh and heal and celebrate women's history and achievements, can withdraw and learn and connect. And it almost sums up every other aspect of the center that we know. But I also want, if anyone wanted to understand better, you know, with what Winnie says, she just, you know, highlights the whole dream. But what do we look for, especially as young women, what do we then look forward to in using this safe space, as Patience calls it? How do we, you know, how will we be able to use this space to thrive as women?
Okay, thank you so much. You know, when we were on the campaign and, you know, enlightening people about all these things, there was about the Imara.
Yeah.
Yes, there was something that struck me, because I was hesitant to use almost all these words, and sometimes I kept saying shelter, shelter, shelter for women. But then, you know, whenever they say shelter, it's people think straight to abused women, straight to, and that's not true. Imara Center is a home. It's a home. It's a home for women where you can go and relax, where you can, you know, when they say you can go and relax, it's a place of opportunity. It's a place for growth. It's a place where everyone is supporting each other. It's a place, and unlike the various stereotypes, where women are for women. And I think the best way to describe it is a home, a second home from where you live, from where you eat. It's everything for a woman.
I love home because, you know, when you think of home, you think of all the things that are beautiful about home.
Yes.
Home is where the food smells nicer. Home is where, you know, your bed can...
where it's warm.
Yes, so I love. Let me bring you in, Joan. And then for me, mine is on sustainability. I'm a big advocate for sustainable initiatives.
Me too.
Because, I mean, we will not always have donor money.
No.
You get. But even then, it's more empowering to own something yourself. And I think that is what the Imara Women's Center stands for. I even when you say sustainability for tomorrow in the Women's theme, the Women's Day theme, it kept coming back to me that is what we want. We want to come to a place where we can be able to stand on our own. But I want you to speak to, you know, the funding environment within Uganda today, and what it speaks for our need or urgency to push for sustainable initiatives like the Imara Women's Center.
Okay, so first of all, the nature of funding in Uganda, especially funding that comes to civil society organizations and women's rights organizations, is mainly project-based funding. It's one-off, like they'll give you money to implement a particular project. After that project dies, it's hard to measure how far the impact has gone. After 20 or 30 years, how do you measure impact of a particular project? What is there to show that this project once happened, but also in terms of renewing the benefits of that project from time to time. So the sustainability concept of the Imara Center is really, really powerful, because you find as women's rights organizations, we are constantly looking for places to have our activities, and
then we end up giving proprietors
so much money, you know.
We are constantly, very many people can't even participate because it's costly.
And then you can't even call this place home because it doesn't even feel like home. And yet you know that when women design things, you've visited various women's rights organizations, it really feels like home, you know? Even if you've come with all your problems, you're like, oh my God, this place is... I vividly remember doing Malo when I visited a certain organization. I was like, oh my God, is this even an office, you know? So imagine having such a space, you know, where people can go, people can laugh, people can share knowledge and build knowledge, but also the entire concept that it's not only a space for a particular age group, it's everyone walking into the center. All of us here were nurtured by different women's rights organizations and the women's movement, and we all want that for every other girl who has not had the opportunity to have as much exposure as we have. So for me, I think that is sustainability in itself.
Yes.
When we open the doors of the Imara Center, girls in school will know this is a place we can go and probably talk about sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Women activists, I want to talk about activists who need healing, who need recollection, because we give a lot of ourselves in the different causes that we serve. We shall know we have a space that we can go and have a retreat at, you know, to rejuvenate, to re-energize, to re-strategize. And for me, that's so powerful. Also to women's organizing, that we have challenges organizing as women. We organize the women's march at here, they've come for us. We try to organize this conversation, they've come for us. You just go to the Imara Center, sit with your mat, you know. So I think it's really a sustainable way of approaching the struggle we are in.
The struggle we are
Yes.
in. And it can't be tasking.
Yeah.
I love that quote. What's the point of a revolution if we can't dance?
Yeah.
You can't dance,
And then we were talking and having a conversation. I kept saying, I can't wait to wake up one morning and call you Patience. I'm like, come we go. We go to our home and chill and rejuvenate and reflect.
Yeah.
And then I also love the aspect that there is a gallery attached to it that
it
speaks
is.
of the women's history.
Yeah.
And it brings me to the conversation of documenting our history. There is a quote that says, until the lions learn how to write, you know, that the stories will always glorify the hunters.
Yeah.
The stories of the hunt will always glorify the hunters. And it speaks for how, whether we've written our history as women.
Yeah.
And that is where I want to pick your brain at, especially because, you know, it's a legacy we are building, but also it's a promise for the future that we are building, that other women can build onto it. What does that speak for us writing our own stories and being able to tell them?
Well, being able to tell our stories, I believe, is an amazing thing, because for over the years that have come, most stories that are told are of a specific activity that has gone on. We don't know the whole history, the ones that came before us and those coming after us. I love reading so much of Dr. Sylvia Tamale's writings. And through her writing, you can also tell what life she has lived or what life she's empowering around her. And the likes of Miriam Matembe as well. So many women are actually writing, so many women are writers, but how about we have all that compiled in one, and not just history of just Ugandan writers, because it's a center that is open to other countries as well, where we meet, and irrespective of whether you know how to write, whether you're a novelist or not, whether you're just good at speaking or being an activist, and there's even the part of activism. Yes. So you can draw, you can inspire through creatives and arts, and still that history can be put down. So that center, I'm so excited to have it, where we can finally have our stories written. Like, you can go on a trip with your kids there and
imagining
show
there is
them.
a wall somewhere where you even sign.
Exactly. So I believe women need to also put down their history. Over the years, most times in history we see so many men, which is okay, it's really okay, but it's also high time we have the same energy being put for the women, because they're equally there as well. They're being hidden in history, and most times their history appears when it's their husbands. They come and they're like, Tricia's husband did this and that. And yet she was actually the voice. Most of these very serious men and philosophers of the past were really inspired by voices of their women. So, and all that dies out. Yeah.
And you make a strong point, especially the conversation that is happening in the US today. I know it's very many miles away, but it's of the you know, the Supreme Court Judge Nominee Kijina and what people are saying is because of her husband's name. So I hear you when you say that. Nancy, let me take you into fundraising. Because, you know, as a youth strand, we have commitments to fundraising, but we want to invite people to join this initiative. How do we invite women, especially the women's movement? I need you to speak to the fact that this is a thing for the women, and therefore it is a women's movement initiative. So how do we bring them to this table to build with us this center?
All right, thank you. So inviting women to contribute to a women's home. Well, this has been a bit difficult, let me say, because you know, when we are fundraising, this initiative is mainly online, because most of us have other engagements during the time. So, you know, the first day it struck me how nobody came out to ask me, what is this about?
True.
And I was a bit upset, actually. I was a bit upset until I went back and contemplated, and I was like, okay, so women are not talking about a women's center. Women are not asking about a women's center. And the first thing I did was call up my mom, and I told her, Mom, the Imara Center. And then she's like, what is the Imara Center? Is it another one of the feminist things you're doing?
I know.
Oh yeah. So I'm like, so this is it. This is it.
This is it.
This is it. It's tagged with feminism, which is tagged with confrontation and resistance. And so, and I went down into each person's inbox and I told them, this is not just a women's center. This is a home. It's a good place to have. It's a safe place to have. It's a place that you can go to. And I think it's all about reaching out to people individually. And I'm not saying it's going to yield miracles. Some people will get on board and some people will not. But I found that approach of talking to someone and letting someone know what this is all about. You know, half of the time people think that a women's movement is about unsapping people, like sabotaging other people, which is not true. And once they get to the thinking that this is actually for everyone, it's beneficial for us all, you find them making commitments that they actually follow through with. Commitments like, you know what, I have not got the money this week, but can I bring it next week? And I'm like, yes, that is all right. You have the, like, I think it's all about reaching out to people in a way that is not confrontational. Because we need to change the perspective. People need to know that we are out to celebrate everyone. Equality for women is cerebral. It's intellectual. It's about spaces. It's about opportunities. It's not about, oh, I can carry 200 pounds like a man, or I can beat up someone like a man, or I can be a guard like a man. It's mostly intellectual. It's about spaces. And it's about the choice. The right to choose.
And I love what you say when you say it's about spaces, because ever so often we need these spaces to be able to come together and think together and work together and you know, repurpose and refocus ourselves back on what we are doing in order for us to push, because the women's rights movement will always be at the center of our agenda. And so I wish, and this is a call to everyone else who wants to be part of, you know, this building and this initiative, is that the Imara Women's Center is for every woman, by women, for women. And yet we are inviting the men to be part of it as well in the building. I think they'll also be able to use the facility.
Yes, they will.
And
allies.
I think when they say,
allies.
I think when they say women are homemakers, Imara is the home.
It's the home.
And it's going to be made by women. So please, if you think women are homemakers, you should support the Imara.
And let me go into something you prompted me into when you spoke about Sylvia Tamale. This week she was recognized for an award. And I wanted, it's something I wanted to think about, but also to break the ice on what we are, you know, we are talking serious issues here. So just to break the ice on the serious things that we are talking about, what achievement by a woman has been most meaningful to you in your life or work? Individually, all of you must have women that speak to you. Please don't say me, please. but just to, you know, in light of the Women's Day, and what women in your life or work have inspired you with their achievements.
Shall we meet them?
Please, pick someone you can stop.
Okay, interesting. So for me, I deeply honor the contributions that the first female legislators made towards building democracy and women's participation in politics, because I feel like they really created a firm foundation for women to rise up and stand. The women who participated in making the 1995 Constitution.
Can I interrupt you there? Guess
Please.
what? The CA had our patron on, had some of the women from Forward
And they
on.
won.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
I know, right?
So, yeah, including Winnie.
You know?
we should not just call them and blanket it.
yeah.
Yes, the women be animals, you know. So for me, I think that that contribution, it just stands on my head, and I feel like I have a greater responsibility to make the world better for other women and girls, because these women didn't even visualize us being in the picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They didn't imagine one day there would be these girls who are shouting about wanting to become MP, or they just imagined other women must be wanting. And I think for me, they created the pillars of feminism, because feminism isn't attached to a particular class. There are ladies who are in the lower class, in quotes, or middle income class, but they are feminists, you know. So I think that was, for me, it really stands out. Yeah, I hope I meet them.
Yes, you will meet them. Come for the groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Fish.
Yes.
Which women?
Well, first of all, your question is a very interesting one, because there's literally so many women, and it connects me back to the historical writing of women, what women have done. Actually, there's so many when you think about it, but none of them is put in history, or most of them, the ones that are put in history, are very few, and these are those who are having
unknown.
exactly unknown, or they put women who they have been on some light, and they have that energy for it. But then there's so many who are even in the grassroots and all that, who have tried and struggled. It's so it brings me, I hope you'll ask us about misogyny that is happening in the country, a lot of hate speech against women as a person, and yet we're all about gender roles changing and shifting in this world. So for me, really, there's so many that probably have been mentioned in the past, and I wouldn't want to mention them again, because most of us know them and they've inspired so many women. Yes, but I really, oh, Joan, the women here, first of all.
Patience looks like she's about to tear.
I'm so emotional, but yes, about this, I really feel so passionate about it. So first of all, the women here on this panel, you're doing well. Yes, you're doing well, and trust me, you're inspiring so many out there. And then I just want to really give a shout out to Dr. Fumzile of South Africa, the current Vice Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg and former UN Women Executive Director. Why her? Because her story dates back to a very humble beginning, where she starts from being in the the academia, being a lecturer and all that, moves into politics, handles positions that many really think cannot handle, of course, basing on the fact that now South Africa is highest in Africa as a nation on gender equality. We appreciate what is being done, but then she picks into different ventures, and I believe so many women are an epitome of that. Women are hard workers and multitaskers. Like, they would be here in a meeting and be online in another meeting, and our Prime Minister was on the road trying to be in another thing. So I mean, we're really multitaskers. So I don't know.
You had to do that shout out.
I know there's a lot of backlash, and most of the backlash didn't even come because of the office and all that, which is also allowed because you're in a public office, but the backlash was sexist. It was because she's female. Like, when you put women there, Babiono, now let me even use Buganda, they spoil things. When they're in an office, it's just a spoiled thing as long as there's a woman. And I think breaking the bias, like this year's theme, a lot needs to change. It's more than just being a woman. Maybe say as the office holder, there's this and that, but should you come and attack the person of a woman? And fellow women also do that. I don't know. It's very sad. Yes, so that is it.
Nancy, what women?
Okay, this is really big, like they both say. And since they've talked about these women who've been recognized, I would like to talk about women who've not been recognized yet. You know, when I was younger, I used to go to my auntie's house. Like, I feel like the whole word sophistication should have been formed from her house. And like, there's a way she handled everything so fine. My aunt, I have her name, Caroline. Yes, she's called Ayikoru Caroline. I get emotional when I talk about her.
It's okay.
That's nice.
Yes, so I feel like the power in that woman, a single mom, a mother of 5, who had not completed her education. She went back to school, worked, paid school fees for her 5 children. Like, she came from a long way. She came from Karamoja, started up in Kampala, and like picked up her life. She is the embodiment of women empowerment, a self-empowered woman. And I am just in a way of that woman all the time, like all the time. Every time they say her name, I just feel like she should have like a statue somewhere. And that is a woman who has not been recognized. That's a woman who has whose story is not written anywhere.
And there's so many like that.
A story that needs to be told.
A story that needs to be told. I feel like it should be on Al Jazeera. Like, those are, and there are many others. Those are women who woke me up to the realities of life. Women who told me that you can do more than you are willing to do. Like, you need to get up. And also, like I said, women on this panel, because there are times I've been at my lowest, and then I get this phone call. Oh, so do you want to go for this? And I'm like, you mean there is that?
There is that girl.
And it's like someone is picking you up when they do not know how they're picking you up. Those are women who are picking up other women. They are picking up other women to do more than they are able to do, because they also have a point where they say, this is enough, I've fought my fight, and I need other women to come up. I need to empower these girls. I need to subconscious feminists. Yes, and those are the women I would like to recognize, because no one is telling them these things. Maybe I don't know, Aunt Caro, is anyone telling you? because I would like that people talk to them and let them know that
talk to her in the camera. I'm telling you this.
Yes. I just know that by being her, she has empowered a lot of people. Her 3 daughters, myself. Yes, she has showed us that there is more to the woman. And most women lose their identities when they're not working.
Exactly.
When they're not working, they are sucked
in marriages.
Marriages, they are sucked into being mom. But there is more to mom. Mom works, mom owns a car, mom builds this. And I think the person who has set that example for me is my Aunt Caroline, Caroline.
And I love that, because part of what the Imara Women's Center is that it recognizes the contributions of women, even at the grassroots.
Yes, exactly.
And so we are building that even after a long, tedious struggle that we stand in, these women can also be invited to such a space and be able, to rejuvenate, to learn more, to unlearn, to unwind.
Yes.
And, the embodiment of rest is what the Imara Women's Center is for. I hope one day, because there's going to be a resting area and that kind of luxury, I hope one day you pick Aunt Caroline and take her there.
Yes.
And then give her that one day of beautiful rest. Beautiful rest.
Yeah.
And I want to conclude this conversation, but I want to continue on a high note. I'm going through just a round of questions, but key for me at the end of this conversation, I want us to have a commitment to what we look for. Oh, dream big. What you look forward to if we finish. It's a matter of when, actually. It's not a matter of if. When we finish building this beautiful home, what do you imagine yourselves as part of the people that were part of this initiative doing? That's going to be my last one. But as we go into that, I want to talk about stereotypes in breaking the bias. I was very happy that we are bringing back the conversation around stereotypes at the forefront of our Women's Day initiatives, but that we also rally with it into the other months. While you're talking with Patience, she was like, it's very unfortunate that funding for women comes between March and November. Because March we have the Women's Day, so it's a Women's Month, the funding will come. And then November we have, activism, the 16 days activism against GBV. And so that is where also more money will come. And so the question then is, we live with these biases. We've been told engineers can't be women before, and yet we broke that bias. I mean, we have a whole Winnie Byanyima who is an engineer in our own right.
I know, right?
And so, speaking to stereotypes, are there stereotypes for women that you are surprised are still there, and you're surprised you still run into?
Yeah. Oh my God. I said, oh my God, because I remembered a particular show I went for, and immediately I arrived, the lady came and asked me, are you this and this person? And then I said yes. And then she first went back to confirm if I was really the person. So it brings about the fact that if you're a young woman, it is so hard for you to actually prove your competence. You literally have to work up to 10 times more. And then even after maybe you deliver a particular product or service, people are still questioning, but was she really the one? I think she was helped by someone. There is someone up there who is, trying to patch things to make it work for her. So I think as women, as we try to grow past a certain level, okay, I don't want to say level of poverty, to grow past a certain level, or even just to grow as individuals, we constantly face that bias. Yeah, so it's really alarming. Even for women who are in STEM, it's even worse, because you find a class has like 5 girls and 90 boys, So there is a huge gender equality gap in such areas. So if you join as a woman in STEM, please excel. Wherever, like whatever you join, be it media, be it politics, just join to excel. Like, don't even give yourself room to make mistakes, because you'll make only one mistake and people are all over the place. Oh my God, she did this. Now you see the case of the Prime Minister, the case of Anita Among, the case of Betty Amongi. All these are women who are in the public eye. Guys are making mistakes. Guys are going to parliament and spreading fallacy. But they are not, how do I say, they are not called out for them. People don't make a big deal out of it. But when it's Anita Among, she'll trend for like 3 weeks, when it's even worse now with the Prime Minister.
I know.
Like, she'll trend, they'll bring out all her photos. Oh my God, like.
But they really torture her with her back in the day photos. And those little clips that they get from the internet.
Yeah.
Maybe to ask Patience, because the things with gender, especially with women issues, it's sticky for me, because it's almost we are doing like a monkey dance. We are always talking about these things. What effective ways can we call out these gender biases in our everyday lives? And women are also not exempt to these kind of biases. A person tells you a woman's place is in the kitchen. You're like, it's 2022. What effective ways can we deal with these biases?
Well, before even responding to that, I just remembered something when Joan talked about women in STEM. It's very sad that Uganda is still party to the Underground Workers Act, something like that. An international act that actually in its sections speaks of the fact that women are not allowed to go in mines. You're not supposed to go and work there unless you're doing work that is light. And so that brings about the gender responsive service delivery to it. Does that mean that women cannot work in mines? Does that mean women who are engineers cannot do this and that? Of course, physically built ways of women, they can't carry one thing alone as opposed to a man, but they can do the same thing collectively. So those biases of looking at someone's biological self should be ended, as opposed to the gender roles, because gender roles cut across. A man can cook, a woman can go and become a doctor, as opposed to the previous roles that were there set up by society. Now, to your question, definitely we need to see a world where women can ably exercise their roles in society without any bias. And I feel like this stems to the point of gender-sensitive service delivery. Even in the media, we have women who are there, but I feel like some of them don't even report very sensitively. They also report in a way that they may be being respectful to their bosses, who do not even want to look at all these slight mistakes that are being made. So you find a headline coming out and it's actually oppressing. It's very misogynistic.
1,000 teenage pregnancies.
I remember when the president of Tanzania, the female president, how the headlines were, a woman heads Tanzania, a woman does what gets a chance to head Tanzania because a man has died, things like that. So all that kind of reporting still keeps coming up, and it is very sad. So I think moving forward, even our own women, I don't know why we give up so fast. We give up so fast. We end only in hashtags online. But and so many
Keyboard
women
warriors.
exactly someone called us that some time back. So I feel like even beyond that, like how policies have been pushed for, I know it is very hectic. Even the succession bill that is still pending, accession, we still, and it has been pushed for so many years. Trust me, I know it's so hectic, but it's our role, even us who are still young and are yet to grow older. We see the ones who were there before us stood firm for so many years to ensure that these laws are there. And even when these laws need to be rectified, like looking at gender roles, we have to be there and look into it as us in our different fields. So it's really my prayer that we can get into a gender sensitive kind of service delivery, avoid media pointers on the negativity or hatred towards women, and they do it because it is, we are women. If it was a man, I don't think it will bring so much light to it. And it is so sad that even some leaders we look up to are actually the ones perpetrating such things, because they have verified accounts. They are probably having so many followers, but
you reminded me of small girl.
Oh,
Right.
oh, nothing is being done about that. So moving forward, we need to look, as we're having these trainings, I've seen now, like Forum for Women in Democracy has done with the leadership trainings, breeding and alumni that are more gender sensitive. Center for Constitutional Governance having Civic Space TV and programs for women. I actually want to give a shout out to Councillor Sarah Birete, because we would not have such opportunities to speak up, but because of women like her who are selfless, we have had such a platform to speak on TV. So all these channels, the manuals that are there, it's so sad that they still say women can't come up. Of course, there are women who maybe turn them down and they're frustrated, but it doesn't mean all other women are the same. There are still other options, just like how a man will turn us down, and we still have an option of another man, as opposed to just now saying we want it all. You know, especially on those topics of national importance. But because it's a women's show, that's why we're actually having women talking about women's problems. So I really date back to gender sensitive service delivery. The media needs to help us. They need to adjust how they report, because the more the media reports in such a way of attacking the person of a woman, then the more the rest also follow, because they keep retweeting, they keep taking pictures of the newspaper headlines and all that, and then they post around. So if the media reduces on that and becomes more sensitive, I'm dreaming of a world that is like that.
And you really stress that, because media builds narrative.
A
They
lot.
have a lot of power that
So
they
much.
hold
Yes.
in how we create our narratives and perceptions around headlines. Nancy, let me bring you in there. But I want you to help me understand the affirmative action. Because I recently saw a tweet that said 51% of people in Makerere University are women. And a gentleman writes under his tweet, I wasn't polite to it, but under his tweet he says, isn't it time that we do away with affirmative action? And I was like, because of 51%? And you really feel we've achieved a lot? So help me understand, because you're a law student and you deal with the nitty-gritty of the affirmative action. I believe there ought to be an update on what it entails, but not a scrap. What do you think in that regard?
Affirmative action. First of all, we need to understand that affirmative action is meant to remove discrimination that is unjustified, to make sure it does not happen again. And then it's about elimination of a disservice of something that has been going on for so long. And let me tell you that change and a revolution does not take one day. It's a process, and it's a lot of things. The reason why people are so very, they feel very attacked by affirmative action is due to the fact that they think that it's there to remove the men. It's there to attack the men, which is not true. Which is not true at all. it is about building a society that is uniform for all of us.
Yeah.
For all of us, we don't even need to delve into the nitty-gritties of the law, because it's about basic understanding of the fact that that woman is the same as that man, that girl deserves the same opportunity as that. Besides, I mean, the women population in the world is almost 2/3 of the world population. Like,
exactly,
women have, they exist, more women exist than men, and it's expected that in many places women will show up. Like, I feel like it's
even
basic,
biological.
Yes,
you know,
that is what I am saying.
Science.
That's what I'm saying. You know, when the people make it so political and so complex, that's when they fail to understand it. But if it's explained to them, broken down to them, and they understand this, then they know. And I wish to put this out. Like, whenever someone says it's just another women's issue, women are 2/3 of the world population. Issues affecting women cannot be just another issue.
So get on board.
Get on board, because you would
because time is going to run out. I want you even now, what's your, in 1 or 2 words, because everyone's going to have just one minute, what your future is for the Imara Women's Center? What do you dream of? I need you to dream big. In one sentence.
Very, very big. Okay, this is a bit, it's like a stretch, like a notebook, several notebooks of writing. Imara,
give me one
Imara,
sentence.
Imara. I give you one sentence.
Yes.
Imara, when I think about the Imara Center, I think of the time when we can take a breather.
Take a breather.
Yes, because the fights is tiresome.
Yeah.
We already know that. But then, in real truth, when we can say women and men are now equal, and no one is coming to say no, there is no, that is almost unrealistic. When people say it's almost unrealistic. But I dream of a time when men will not be offended by the fact, or people will not be offended by the fact that men and women can be equal.
True.
Or by a sentence as such, when they'll be like, oh yeah, women and men are equal. It's good to be.
And we can coexist without killing each other.
Without killing each other. We can coexist without these backlashes, without all this fighting. Yes.
Joan, in one sentence.
Love
Dream big.
Wins. Love wins.
Love wins.
Yeah, because all we are doing is out of love, and we shall win in the end, because whatever we are doing is not for us, but for the women coming after us.
And for the other woman, and for the other woman, and for the other woman. Patience, in one sentence.
Well, I'm just dreaming of a place where we can have powerful campaigns for gender equality, for generational change, and maybe to the viewers, follow Forum for Women in Democracy pages to get to know how to support the center, because we're looking for a very huge amount of money in order to have this in reality, so that we can have continuous powerful campaigns and have a whole nation right down there that is going to change policies, have gender sensitive budgeting, responses, transformational leadership, and a better world. Yes.
Thank you very much. And what they say, I can only piggyback on. We cannot build without you. This is an initiative for all of us. Come build with us and give us a home, give us a center, but also be part of the push to rise for equality. On 7th March, we will do groundbreaking for the Imara Women's Center. But I want each and every one of you, in your own ways, to contribute to this conversation, but then also to push for women's rights. We are not yet there, but we've moved a very great deal. And so for the future, I hope you'll be part of us. Thank you for coming. I've been your host, Tricia Gloria Nabaye. Bye.